Okay, hello. Hello. I'm going to make sure if we're going live here, if it's connected. And we'll wait a few minutes for people to join us if they want to join us live. Otherwise, they can watch the replay on LinkedIn and then the replay that'll be on YouTube. But welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's funny. We won't go into all the details, but you and I connected. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a while, but then prepping for this conversation, we realized that we both know a lot of the same people that went to Loris, like you went.
It's always a small thing. Is always just a nice indication that you're connecting with the right people. So that was terrific. But yeah, nice small world there. One of them.
Yeah. Yeah, super funny. Yeah. So today, this is the second episode of this Lessons from the Leaderboard to Leadership. And this is where Rise Up Consulting, the company that I run, really specifies and specializes with emerging salespeople going from the leaderboard to leadership. And we can talk about all of the stats, which we're going to get into, but what it takes to be successful in sales is different than what it takes to be successful as a sales leader. And this is just a very candid conversation. So those emerging sales leaders who are looking, hey, should I go for that next promotion? What are the skills that I need? Do I have what it takes? Can kind of learn some lessons. And then we'll kind of carry this conversation the way that it is. But before we went live, and I'll have you introduce yourself in just a second, Ben, but we were talking about some of the stats with the emerging sales leaders and just leaders in general. And it's kind of crazy. So I actually did a survey, Leaderboard Leadership survey, about a year ago. So if anyone is watching this, you can email me at risewithrebecca@gmail.com. I'll get you all the stats. But there was so little data about the training that sales leaders have, their biggest mistakes, where they struggle, that I wanted to get all of that and then back that with data that has been proven from other sources, like the Harvard Business Review, who says that the average age someone gets their first leadership promotion is age 30, but their first leadership training is age 42. And the average tenure for salespeople is 18 months. Average tenure for sales leaders is 19 months. And we've always had a high turnover problem in sales, but now it's exaggerated and it's getting worse. And leaders are the competitive edge. So anything that Gallup's ever done, you guys can go geek out on any Gallup, go Google anything that they have. But they've done extensive research for years about it's the leader that impacts the team. And they're specific about if a better coach team from the sales leader, they produce more. So we don't scale sales organizations with a bunch of top salespeople. We scale them with phenomenal leaders. So that's just some of the background and why I feel passionate about that. And my guests who are joining me feel really passionate about that. So with that, Ben, can you give a brief introduction of yourself and your background in sales?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more there too. I think there's so much unintentional miscommunication at the beginning of this process, right? From sales leader or from sales producer to sales leader. My name is Ben Bina. I've been in sales for 20 plus years. If you go back to telemarketing days in high school, I suppose that could inch us up a few more years there. Worked mostly in insurance sales, residential and commercial, and what I really enjoy about that is just the opportunity to meet people, build relationships that I can have over a long period of time. And I believe in the product as well of insurance, but it's really connecting with the people. And I think that's a lot of what we'll talk about today. And the ideas of how to have success within any type of organization, whether it's corporate, a family, a sports team, good communication, and people sort of rowing the boat the same direction makes all the difference. So that's what I try to lead with in my sales presentations, whether it's for the prospect or a client, the team at the office, that we're all working the same direction and communicating proactively and open and honestly as well, right? Things all work well when we have those factors in play.
Yep. So you and I both have an insurance background.
Yes. I saw Heritage Life and you were very, very successful, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I loved insurance too. They're just, yeah, anyway, some people stayed in insurance for years. Some people get in and they get out like I did. But it is fun. But you said communication several times, effective communication. And I think everyone agrees with that. So let's kind of riff a little bit here on this subject, because the communication through from executive teams when you come up with the vision and the strategy, and then communicating that through middle management, and then communicating that to the sales team. It sounds like it's easy, but it's not. And so much, like my daughter had just come home, she's 7, and she said they played the game of telephone at school.
Mm.
And it was funny, like, and they said, oh, this person messed it up. They thought it was this and not that. But we really do play a game of telephone. So what is your idea, or how do you think the best way to communicate is with leadership? Because it can send the wrong communication, can send a different message and have people running in all different directions.
I think one of the most important factors is to establish an atmosphere of trust, trust and accountability. Personally, I've never believed in the idea of driving sales leaders, right, where it's almost a fear-based structure. I don't believe for one moment that brings out the best in anyone. I think you might get temporary results that way, but you're not going to develop and create long-term successful sales individuals. So the accountability is great. I love it when someone believes in me, and I think most people feel that the way, whether you articulate it or not. And then they know what I might be good at and where some gaps are that I have. So when you can see that as a sales leader, when I can have a conversation with Rebecca, with Ben, with Pete, whatever it might be, and we're trying to get to the top of the sales mountain the same way, but we're going to go a little different route. Some people are going to be comfortable with a certain type of marketing and conversation, others going different directions. So a one-size-fits-all management style certainly won't work. And by getting to know the person and creating that environment of trust and accountability, I think it helps to bring out the best in your teams. And when you have your top sales leaders believing in your process, when your top producers believe in your process as the leader, that's where I think you really get much more efficient distribution, and you can go deeper down the channels with much more direct communication, right? You're going to get a very similar result from the top down to level 3 or level 4, whatever you want to call it. I think about successful sports teams, and you can look at the Golden State Warriors in the finals right now. They have an excellent head coach in Steve Kerr, and they have Stephen Curry leading the team on the court. And their best player is non-negotiable about how he's going to go about his work. And it's the same message from ownership to general manager to coach to best player. And a sales organization is absolutely no different. No different at all. So it's a long-term process. You have to create the trust. And again, that comes from, I think it starts with communication, open and honest about what the job entails, and then being willing to be flexible as you go, because it's obviously not going to stay the same either.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's so key of getting buy-in. I have with one particular corporate client that I work with, I was talking about the difference between sales leaders always selling their ideas and the teams actually buying it, right? Like there's a difference. And so that's actually one of the distinctions that I talk about with clients is like when you're in sales, you're always selling, you're getting people on your team. You can't always sell as a salesperson. There really needs to be and it's not just I accept that. That's not buy-in. Like when they actually do it, but it's very key what you were saying. You go after when you sell an idea, or you go to the influencers on your team, those top salespeople, and if they don't buy in, you're never going to get everyone else.
Right. And I've been in both positions, right, as an employer with maybe 4 or 5 team members, spread amongst account managers and sales. And I've noticed these things as the sales producer, right? If we have a management change, that relationship makes a big difference. And I want to buy in, right? I want to create a win-win relationship and situation because that's obviously best for everyone. But that's a struggle when there's not a connection there, or you don't trust their process, because maybe it doesn't feel genuine as well, right? Sometimes I can not think it's the best route for me or for some other people, but if you're genuine, I trust you, I see where you're coming from, I know you want the best, that can be that middle ground where you can still have some buy-in without sort of that full, that's how I would do it as well.
Yep. Trust and accountability is another ball of wax that we don't have time to go into today. But it's a focus, and it should be the foundation of any sales leaders training and what they're getting coached on as well, because you really need it. It's the results. Someone trusts you in sales. They trust your, I guess, your reputation by your results, but results of the sales leader isn't just people don't trust you, and it's a whole ball of wax. We'll come back. We'll come back to that. But let's dig in. Let's actually dive into this Kolbe thing, because this is how, so you and I have been connected on LinkedIn for a while. And then someone we know, Kim, was at one of my executive roundtables, and she had mentioned this Kolbe thing. And she said, I took a test. Ben Bina was my Kolbe consultant at the time. I know you're not certified anymore, but you still geek out about it. And I said, what's that? Because what I was noticing with my clients is that, yeah, it's valuable to give sales leaders coaching, like that's helpful. But if you don't have the right person in the right seat, any amount of training won't really move the needle that much. It's kind of a waste of money. And that's the last thing I ever want to do, is be a waste of money to any organization, right? So, and you just said coaching people, and I say you treat everyone the same, but you coach them differently. But the Kolbe, can you explain it? I could geek out it, but I want you to explain it. How did you get started? And then we'll start talking about this as like how you can coach someone and like the differences between somebody's MO.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. The right people in the right seat. You have EOS, you have Kolbe, and then strategic coach, if we ever go down that rabbit hole, are so integrated. And again, it's about putting the right person in the right seat, and having that communication on the front end to create the win-win, right? If we have a professional interviewer and a professional interviewee, we want to like each other, because it's very convenient if you're hiring and I'm looking for a job. And I'm like, well, I can do the things that you're requesting and requiring. I'm capable of them, but do they align with my MO, my mode of operandi, how I'm going to take action in a natural, exciting way, right? Exciting for me, where I'll gain energy from doing these activities, versus activities that I'm capable of doing, but they're going to drain my energy. QuickBooks, right? Put me in front of QuickBooks and I'm done. Put some other people in front of a camera and they would be like, no way, right? So it's important to find the talents and the energizing activities that each person has, and align those natural innate qualities with the job description and with the job responsibilities, and whom they're going to be training and coaching. And it's okay if we go through the process and it's not the right fit. That is a win-win when the hire is not made for the right reasons. But kind of going back to that path of least resistance when we're interviewing, again, we want to like one another, because I fill the position for you and you can move on to the next thing. And I can start collecting a paycheck or trying this new venture that I want to be involved in. And it could be completely non-malicious on both sides, but then maybe 3 weeks after the new car smell kind of fizzles away, I'm going, oh boy, I'm not sure if this is what I thought it was. And you're going, well, Ben wasn't like this in the interview. What did I miss? Or what did he tell me that isn't the truth? And that can just be, again, a person with natural strengths that's not doing the activities in the job that give them energy and produce the best results for the organization or for the clients, right? Maybe it's a win-win-win.
Yep. So so I'm going to fill in a couple of the gaps you said, but that's so true. And it's right now, interviewing is such a hot thing, retention, and so the reason I got certified in Kolbe was it was like the missing piece because it's all about who you're hiring, like it's all about who you're hiring and doing that interview the right way. And that is a skill that needs to be taught to emerging sales leaders. Just because you sell doesn't mean you know how to interview or you know how to recruit someone and onboard them. That's a whole other dimension. But with the Kolbe specifically, so some people will say, well, I know what my personality is or my Enneagram. So just to kind of geek out for a second for people who aren't familiar. So there's 3 parts of the brain: the cognitive part, which we've been judged our whole life with our grades and the SATs and ACTs. That's your habits, that's your experience, that's your IQ. The affective part of the brain is the personality test. So the Strengths Finder, the Enneagram there's a bunch in there. There's a bunch of DISC profile. All of that's affective. The conative part is subconscious, and Kolbe is the only thing that does it, but it's how you do things. So that know, do, and be, the three parts of the brain that ancient philosophers knew about, they just couldn't where's that do? And if you have someone who, because salespeople know how to interview well, right? Like you and I right now, we're salespeople. We can turn it on. We know exactly what to say. And, but that doesn't, how do you know the person showing up in the interview is going to be the person that you need in the role? And how someone does things naturally will be a predictor of their success. And so 2 little bullet points about this is that you were talking about energy. It's like writing with your right or your left hand. I could write with my left hand, but it's going to feel awkward for me. It's going to use more mental energy, which would lead me to burn out, like QuickBooks, right? Like you have bookkeepers for that. Thank you, Heather Williams. But it's like it feels awkward and the results aren't good. So you can have someone in a role for a short amount of time. You were saying like the new car smell, but they're not going to last and they're not going to do good work. And so it's not just, do you get along with them? Do they have the right IQ? But how are they going to actually do it? And there is an MO, a range of success for every single position. And so let's stop that conversation, but let's go to Kolbe, because this is where I want to talk to you about this too, about coaching. So sales people need to learn how to become good coaches, and you can use a bunch of different things to help coach, but Kolbe is one to help coach. So do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And as you, I finished the last answer, I realized I didn't even answer her question. So that'll happen often, right? I'll fill the space with words. I received my Kolbe results in 2014, and not to use hyperbole, but pretty quickly it changed my life. And I use it in every aspect of my professional life, hiring, where I'm going to work, who I'm going to work with, how I introduce myself to new prospects and clients. We use it personally. I have 3 daughters, 14 and under. They've all taken their Kolbe. My wife and I might plan our vacations in some ways based on our Kolbe. So what it really helps with is an understanding of the cognitive part of the mind, how someone's going to take action, what their gut instincts are going to cause them to do, how they're going to tackle a project that they really care about, that they're striving for the right results. Are they going to start with a lot of facts and information? Do they want to check some historical data? Are they going to create a parameter and a process, right? 10 steps will produce this result. Are they going to dive in and be like, Rebecca, how are we going to do this? And you're like, I don't know. We'll figure it out once we get going. And that's going to drive someone else nuts. So it's really neat to get someone's Kolbe MO, because I can have a pretty good idea of how not only we're going to work together, but where they're going to fit really, really well and where they're not going to fit so great. And I'm going to make sure I don't put them in that position, both from the organization standpoint and the individual standpoint. So it's wonderful because we can have these interviews, these subjective conversations where we enjoy one another. And by understanding the roles and responsibilities of the job we're hiring for, and how that person through their cognitive part of their mind is going to take action, again, innately, objectively, we have that background, that objective background to say, all right, well, I like the person, they're checking all the boxes. Do they fit in from a standpoint of how they're going to take action? And if they don't, it's really a bugger, because you feel awful because you can't hire them. I've done it twice. Once I got the Kolbe in 2014, every hire I made after that, we did the right fit report, and if you didn't match, I either had to change the job responsibilities and the job activities, or I had to keep interviewing. And 2 times I bucked the system, hired someone that was not the right person for that seat, and both times the person lasted less than 90 days. And I felt awful because I knew I hired the wrong person. I knew they wouldn't fit, and I thought I could change it. And so we had those conversations, and I tried to leave them in a good spot on their way out. But it's so important because you get objective background and objective structure to a subjective process, and a very important process.
Yeah. And it's like when you set someone up to do a job, like they may be great in these skills, the same thing, like great in sales. Maybe they don't have the MO for sales leadership. Maybe they do. So you can tweak the responsibilities. But I do want to make a note too, because there are laws in the hiring process where you cannot use some tests because they discriminate. You can actually use Kolbe because it doesn't discriminate against gender, background, race, any of that. So if someone's like, how do you use that in the hiring process, Ben? Is that legal? It's totally legal. I don't know what that, I was going to say equal opportunity employment, but yeah.
Yeah, and they've never had a lawsuit even brought against them, right? I remember when I went through my training in 2016, David Colby, who's an attorney and a trainer there, said they never even had a lawsuit brought. So if an attorney says it, then that's more than just if the website says it.
Yep.
But I just think that's terrific, right? If you can read it at 5th grade level, nothing else matters. The Colby can produce consistent, predictable results.
Yeah, you said your daughters use it. I actually just sent it to my nephew because he's graduating actually in August. So he was a junior this last year, but he decided I'm going to get out of high school and then he's going to start going to a technical college to get his nursing degree. And I heard that, I was excited for him, but then I was like, oh man, is he going to be successful as a nurse? So and he is. I got his MO, which was really good, but I actually want to take a step back and explain this. So there's 4 modes in Kolbe. So you kind of alluded to them, but fact finders, how we gather and share information, and you either simplify or you get all the details, and it's a strength. So it's not, we can operate in all different modes, but I'm a 6 and you're a 7. So you are naturally going to start getting facts. I'm not going to start there, but I'm not going to get as many as you do. I'll need to specify a little bit more. So you can use the Kolbe to coach and the difference between it. And then a second mode is follow through, is how you systematize and organize. And I'm a 7, you're a 4. So what that means is I'm creating systems. This is what I do for my corporate clients. When I got my MO, I was like, oh, good, I'm in the right job. You know what I mean? You have these strategists and these people who coach strategy who aren't strategists. I'm like,
yep.
You're not, that's not bad, but their strength is to cut through. You cut through the BS. So you're going to take my system and go, okay, Rebecca, that's great. I'm not going to take 8 steps. I'm going to take 4, and you're going to get there, that's a strength, you know?
Yep.
And then the next mode is quick start, is how we handle risk and innovation. There are people who minimize risk and stick with the status quo. And there's people like you who innovate. And so I'm a 6 in quick start, you're a 7. So we're pretty similar. And then the last mode is implementer, and that's how we deal with space and tangibles. So I'm a 2, you're a 2. We envision, we can talk all day, like talk about it. And there's people who have to touch it. And like we have handymen coming to our house right now. My husband fix nothing. And we shouldn't fix anything, because we're not like that. So there's modes and there's strengths, but let's go to coaching, because how people you don't have to just use a Kolbe, but it's a great example of how sales leaders should coach. Let's talk about, because we're pretty similar, except in our follow through. You're a 4, I'm a 7.
I'm very jealous, by the way.
Yeah, my husband is, he's about the same as you. He starts, when we plan vacations, he goes, we could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this. And then I get the whole vacation plan. I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. Should I buy the tickets? He's like, or he keeps thinking of ideas and brainstorming, right? Like he's really good in that space. But let's talk about follow through with you and I. So how would I coach you? I'll just say that someone who is very organized, because you might call me an implementer in the EOS, where and an envisioner would be like more of a quick, not exactly, but I would be an implementer. That's in EOS. So how would I coach you, who I might get annoyed with, who's not going to follow my systems, or maybe not create systems? How would that be the best? Because before you answer, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Insanity in sales leadership is expecting people to be different than who they are. Right?
Well,
we get so frustrated. Like, I can't make you a 7. So how would I coach you?
And it's a great question. So in a lot, it comes back to communication, accountability, right? Where we have to understand how we're both going to take this action, and I have to be the humility to take one more step forward than I might want to, because I know that's best for you, right? And vice versa, right? And then we both have to have our times where we go, I have to stop here. So let's take a sales process where I'm collecting information from the prospect. We're face to face. I'm enjoying this. We have a form, right? You've created a form that I'm going to fill out, so I have all of the information that you need to create the proposal. In Strategic Coach, they have a brilliant phrase. It's called, your front stage presentations must match your backstage operations. So you and I really, we're going to go out and we're going to make promises to prospects and we're going to want to deliver on those and we mean it and we love it. But when we get back to the office, it's like squirrel and there's another prospect and I want to go present again, right? I want to deliver what I promised, but that's not how I naturally take action. Again, it means I need to do it, but how I would have to do that and your coaching to me would be to agree to what point do I collect the information, bring it back to the office and deliver it to you. Right? Are you creating the proposal or am I? And we talk about each step as we go, and we agree to that, right? And so now there's our accountability for one another and our trust. But if we don't know, if we don't have that articulation of how I'm going to take action and how you are from a follow-through standpoint, you're going to think that I'm a putz or that I just info dump, right? If I need to get you everything by June 10th, I'm probably going to give it to you on June 9th at 11:58 p.m. Thinking
yes,
I
2 minutes. With your quick start, all your best ideas come at 11:58, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And someone used that phrase with me a couple of months ago in the office of an info dump, and I felt bad because that was not what I was trying to do at all. I was thinking I got you everything you needed with my fact finding. It was all accurate. It was complete. It was detailed, but it was nothing, all of it, versus a good steady stream or all of it a few days in advance. So those are different kind of conversations that we can have when we know that we have the right person in the right seat. And then you find that person too that's going to be vested and committed in their role to go outside of their comfort zone, right? Again, we're capable of doing these things. We have the talent to do them. They're just not, 1 and 2 on our list. They might be 4 or 5.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's so good whether someone's using a Kolbe or a Strengths Finder or a DISC or an Enneagram. My coach was using an Enneagram on me 15 years ago, right? Like I'm a 4 with a 3 wing. I'm an individualist with an achiever wing. And so it's whatever you do, I think it's important when you're coaching people or you're relating to your boss as a salesperson, you're trying to get that promotion and trying to figure out how do I please them to get this promotion, is just self-awareness of where they are and where you are. And Kolbe actually produces coaching reports and they do these comparison reports. You can actually say, do this with them, don't do that. And it's not try to be somebody else. It's really meeting people and where they are and coaching their strengths. So let's actually finish with this, Ben, because this is something that when I grew up in the sales world, we all had to fit in one mold. And we worked on our weaknesses and it was grind it out. And all of the research, Gallup again, it's like, that's not going to help someone. You don't make a linebacker a quarterback. You make a quarterback a better quarterback, right? Like there's certain strengths. And so how do you think is the best way to coach to someone's strengths? Or like when you're seeing, oh yeah, they're not getting this in, striving, you're not entering into the CRM the way I want you to, because you're not as a systematizer as me. So instead of me harping on you, right? It's like it's in that. How do you think we should coach to people's strengths as sales leaders?
Great question. It starts with the conversation of how at what point what step in the process is still very simple for you, right? I think a lot of time when we think about our talents, someone might say, Rebecca, how do you do that? And you could say, I'm not sure. I just do it. And we're all really impressed with that talent. And that's a great indication that we should be doing more activities that produce that type of result or that type of feeling. We try to measure at what point we're going to hand that file off. Is it a way that we can, how am I going to answer this? I'm stumbling along on this one. It's the communication on where I'm going to be good and where I'm going to drop the ball. Gosh, I'm not giving a real good answer here, Rebecca. I apologize.
That's okay. It's funny.
It's so individual.
What I love about these lives is like we can't edit it. We're just kind of here, right? But it's really important. Like communication's important, but knowing how people like to communicate is actually based on their personality and their preferences and their MO as well. And then just finding that strength and improving that. But a lot of times too, Ben, I'll ask people, I've been asking my clients a lot lately. In sales, we tend to know what our results are, but they don't know their strengths all the time. I get this like deer in the head, like, what do you mean? What am I good at? Well, I guess I'm good at this, or I don't know. I just do this. I just work hard, or I do that. And I'm like, your competitive edge is finding those strengths and maximizing those, not cloning an old sales leader or cloning the top salesperson. It is leaning into what you do well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I have a good answer too. So, because you gave me a beautiful lead in, we would do an activity inventory, or we'll still do an activity inventory, and this can be great for sales individuals or any members in an office. We'll ask them to just take a sheet of paper, and we've got 1 to 50, and then I give it to them and I say, hey, I want this back at the end of the week, but during the week, I want you to write down every activity you do, and I don't care if it's big or small, if it's something you do every day or something you do once a month. Just more is better, and we'll talk about it then. And that's all the context I give them. So you get it back, and when you're working with a sales producer, you're going to have prospecting calls, networking, coffee with whomever, quoting, creating presentations, reading, and you get that back, and you sit and have that conversation right away. You say, all right, Rebecca, I want you to circle 5 things that you would keep on your list. Everything else is crossed off. What 5 things are you going to keep? And that takes them a moment or two because you want them to think about this and make it an accurate, considerate decision. And then they get their 5, and you're like, all right, we'll cross off 2, right? And you get down to 3. And you're like, all right, cross 1 more off. And so you've got 2. And now we have them rank every activity they had on there, now that we know where the absolute, creme de la creme is. And they're all ranked 1 to 4. For that activity, QuickBooks, can take a long walk off a short bridge. I don't ever want to do it again. And if you take that off my plate, boy, am I going to be happy with you. A 3 is something I'd prefer not to do. I can do it if I need to. I often think if we see people doing 3s and they've been with the organization a long time, they care about the organization and their coworkers and their management style. Maybe they're buying in. If you rank it a 2, you enjoy this, you're good at it, it comes pretty easy, you wouldn't mind doing more of it. 1s, they'll be the least, but these are your absolute best. You gain energy from this type of activity. If it's a perfect world, you're doing this every day. So then we compare people, right? And we have the conversation with the sales producer. All right, you got to get these 3s and 4s off your plate. You have to delegate the 3s and 4s because they're killing your energy and it's not what you're best at. Do the 1s and 2s. Then you start working on some time blocking. But that's another opportunity to really get to know the individual without spending an inordinate amount of time because you've got a lot of people to coach and to help improve. But you get to people in those simple activities, and they did it. It's their words. It's their days. I didn't tell you, here's how you got to do it from Gino Wickman and EOS. It's you told me this.
Yep.
Right? And then we can back that in with some goals that they have and how you get there. So now it just becomes, sort of a math thing of how many calls do you have to make to produce this result.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a great exercise. It's so simple. But what's great about it too is we keep doing things we've always done. Or let's say you're scaling your sales organization. You're like, well, I took on this role because no one else took it, but I'm still doing it. And then you go, why are you still doing that? And they go, I don't know. I've always done it. And so kind of doing that would be really good. Well, Ben, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You shared a lot of really good nuggets. I know that you're focused in commercial insurance, but where can people find you? Where can they? I mean, I know they can. I'll tag you on this on LinkedIn. But do you have a website you want to share or an email?
I have a website under construction, so we'll work on that one. But email can be ben@commandclarity.com. And we're websites under construction because questions, comments, conversations. You want to talk fantasy football draft preparation? We got that coming up. So we'll try to be, we'll work to your strengths in a conversation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Rebecca. You're terrific.
Yep.